With a four, that's a
Like to call the order the study session of January 27th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Deputy Mayor Bowman is absent. Do I have a motion to excuse?
I make a motion to excuse Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Also, Councilmember Cole is absent. Do I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Cole?
I'll make a motion to excuse.
Councilmember Kenna? And do I have a second?
I'll second
Okay,
it.
it's properly seconded.
Can you tell me who the second was, please?
It is Greg Renke.
Each of them.
Is closer. All right.
And Mayor, you do need to take a vote on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. All right. Item number 1 under study session business, resolution number 1712, Murray's disposal 2025 rate increase. I call on Deputy Administrator Jeff Steffens and Steve Hopkins, Murray's District Manager.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to talk about the Murray's 2025 proposed rate increase. The city's franchise agreement with Murray's for refuse and recycle includes 2 annual rate increases. The first increase is based off of the October to October inflation index CPI, and it's 80% of that fee, which this year turned out to be 2.36%. The second rate increase is a pass-through of the Pierce County landfill rate, which is increasing from $174.84 per ton to $184.99 per ton. These rate increases would both become effective in March 1st of this year. And then Murray's is also asking for a continuation of a pass-through of Washington's Climate Commitment Act. That fee is slightly down from the previous year. It's a 13.4% decrease. And regular residential customers will see that fee drop from 19 cents to 16 cents per month. The fees have been advertised as required by law. They're also included in the council packet, and there's some copies. I have some copies back there if anyone needs some. And we have these gentlemen here can answer all your questions.
All right.
All right, well, first, Mayor, Council, thank you so much for having us today and getting us on your agenda. I know everybody's busy. I'd like to take a moment to introduce Brad Smith. If anybody hasn't met him yet, he is our new Assistant District Manager. They knew loosely, he's been with Murray's for about the last a little over 4 years. It's a great asset to have as a partner for me as well. Some new things that the district has worked on since the last time I had an opportunity to speak with you guys is our food waste program. We now fully, and we were in the process last time, but we are now fully residential, can throw all food waste, if you can eat it, it can be thrown into your yard waste at this point. We also have a full commercial food waste program that we're offering to all businesses. So at all sizes, we are now providing food waste services through our district. The increase or the food waste component into the yard waste came at no additional cost as well. That is just part of the rate.
Okay. Go ahead, Barbara.
How is that program working, and do
So-
you see an increase of people using it? or-
So on the residential side, it's been going very smooth. You know, we have seen an increase in people using it. It's a little bit of a slow start. The education piece is, I think, the toughest part of really just getting the message out. We did it through our apps and through a few other means. I know the county has also tried to kind of get their messaging out as well. But I expect that it would continue to increase in popularity. Commercially, it's been a little slow to get up off the ground. We'd love more customers. So if you know anybody, I'll give you a call. but we are proud to have it up and off the ground and really running.
So I know with the recycling program that you have a lot of troubles with people putting things that shouldn't be in the recycling.
Yes.
Are they putting some of that food waste in there?
So what we've come to find is typically the people that are taking the time to sort their food waste to put it into the yard waste bin are usually are very, recycle minded. And so they're pretty educated in those realms and they're doing a great job with it.
Okay.
I think where we get the most confusion in the recycling is typically the bigger of the two containers and it's easy to throw a bag in but when it comes to the food waste, we've actually seen, we've had zero concerns with contamination so far. I mean, if there's been anything in there, it's been completely accidental and of a very small quantity that isn't disturbing. The product that it gets turned into is a certified organic compost, and it hasn't compromised the state of that compost in any way. So very happy with the way that's going.
Good. I'm glad to hear
Mhm.
that. Thank you.
Any other questions for him?
I was gonna ask you, so on the food waste, you said the commercial side isn't working as well. Is that gonna apply to things like restaurants and things like who?
Yes, so it's been slow to start. So there's the HB 1799 is a new law that's came through. It's gonna make its way, it slowly steps up. And I'd have to get that, I wouldn't want to misspeak to it, but I could get that information out to council if you guys would like it. It steps up at certain dates for new requirements. So the next date coming up is gonna be anybody 4 yards of, right now it's anything 4 yards, I wanna say 4 yards of compostable product. So organic product at this point, you have to have a food waste outlet. 4 yards of compostable products, a lot of food waste per week. And it's gonna go to 4 yards of waste. When that happens, a lot more businesses are gonna be affected, and it will continue to step itself lower and lower until it is a requirement across everybody that produces any kind of food waste will be required to. So we're out there with very favorable rates right now, trying to get people to come on board early and kind of get it running. But little tough to get to kind of explain the light at the end of the tunnel of where it's headed and trying to get them on early with the good rate structure. But we'll continue to try. But that's kind of and I'd be happy. I can absolutely get that information out just so you guys kind of see what the step downs look like. The last one's actually for residential, but that was really the easiest one for us to make happen. So that was the first thing that happened was residentially, and then we've been able to get the rest of it put into place since then.
Okay. And then one more question
Okay.
on the rates. So I see the rate increase, the total amount's increasing, and can you just remind me, like, what is a normal household, like, how does it break down? I see the
Yeah.
rates and how much we got, but I don't remember. I know a lot of the commercial ones are really specific, but like on the residential side, like, what does a normal family have? How does that break out?
So typically, what we find a lot of our most popular cart's a 65 gallon. It's going from 51.39 to 53.29, so it's an increase of $2.53. And our lowest size would be a 10 gallon. That'd be a 77 cent increase. The 35 gallon or the 32 gallon that lists in the rates, but it's a 35 gallon can. That one is very typical for smaller families, and that runs at $1.53 in addition, year over year.
Anybody else? Wait, Councilmember Kenna, he's been waiting for a minute.
Snuck in on you there. Sorry, we got this barrier here between
That's
us. But yeah, so I appreciate, all the information provided in the packet as well. I'm just curious, with costs going up for every sector and every type of business and, on consumers, is there ever any new ways of doing business or any new technologies that you guys all employ or that are coming that end up in cost savings that get passed down to the consumer and, any historical precedent for things like that?
Yeah, so historical precedent would be in the automation. That was probably the biggest change to be able to stabilize rate. currently what we just went through and probably everybody here may or may not have been affected by our reroute. We just rerouted everything, which makes us more fuel effective, labor, stabilized, provided a better work-life balance for our team is really what our main aim was there. There's always opportunity in the future for more fuel efficient vehicles. We are test marketing, not at the Murray site, but in our company, electric vehicles. The technology is not there yet, but we do have several trucks. They're just where automated side load that you'd see in your neighborhoods right now runs about 500,000. A electric vehicle runs at about $1 million, and then it's got right around half, a little under half the lifespan. So, but we are actively investing in it in hopes to be able to stay in front. We know that for many different reasons, that's going to have to change. We're going to have to become more and more fuel efficient, more and more carbon neutral. And so yes, but I don't have anything where, hey, yeah, we're right on the doorstep of really being able to cross into something that could be able to show real savings.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ranky.
Yeah, I was just curious on the food waste. It's in the yard waste, I know. So it's just in there, you don't separate it or anything? It
Nope.
all goes with the tree limbs, the grass, all that leaves all together.
Yep, so it goes into all of that. It goes to our composting to a composting facility. They grind it up and then they actually put it over, they pump warm air through the bottom and they gotta go in and turn it every once. It's just kind of think of, the turning compost wheels that you'll see in people's backyards. It's a large version of that. There will be a tipping point, if to where you need more organic yard waste to really make that happen. The food waste doesn't break down quite the same, but we're a long ways away from it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
So these rates, like I mentioned, will become effective March 1st. That we can move back to council regular business at the next regular council meeting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you guys for always keeping us up to date.
I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you.
Okay. Second thing on our agenda, Pierce Transit Long Range Plan Update. I'm going to call on Ryan Windish to introduce our guests.
Thank you, Mayor Hayden. We have a presentation tonight from our partner in Pierce Transit. We have with us Ryan Wheaton, the Chief Planning Officer, and Anna Cartwright or Peterson, Senior Planner. Will be presenting. I think our producer back there is getting it all dialed up. The purpose of this meeting is really to introduce you to the long range plan that Pierce Transit is working on, looking out to 2045. The city will be commenting on the plan. And I know some of you on council know that we've been working for a while talking about how do we get this idea of getting Pierce Transit service back into East Pierce County. And they'll talk a little bit as well. So this is really a key first step in seeing it in policy in a long range plan at Pierce Transit. So I'm actually very excited for, I think it's scenario D. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our guests.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Mayor and Council. We're happy to be here. We talk with some of you throughout the year, and obviously we talk with Ryan Windish and City Manager, City Administrator from time to time, going through some scenarios that you're doing, not just here, but also looking throughout the county at opportunities for Pierce Transit. As you know, we've been out of the city of Sumner, or Sumner's been outside of our boundaries for about a dozen years. In addition to that, Bonnie Lake, DuPont, Key Peninsula, and also Frederickson and Buckley have also been outside. So we have conversations with cities like yours to explain whatever we can, how folks got out, how folks could possibly get back in, and what the future looks like for Pierce Transit. Today, I'm going to start by giving a brief overview of the services that we provide. Anna's been in depth with our long range plan, so we'll go through that and highlight scenario D. And then if there are questions about Sumner's history with Pierce Transit or the potential of what a return to Pierce Transit's boundaries look like, we'd have to answer those. In short, Pierce Transit operates in 70% or 70% of the population of Pierce County falls within our boundaries. We're in 13 cities and parts of unincorporated Pierce County. We provide about 6.5 million trips per year. If you look at all of our modes, next slide, are our local bus, or what we call fixed route. We see the 40-foot buses around the community. We also have paratransit, or our shuttle program. That is for folks that qualify for specialized transportation based on a disabling condition that precludes them from riding the bus. We also have formerly called Van Pool, or currently Rideshare. For us, this is a very large program. So we are a mid-size agency in the nation for local bus. So if we look at top 100 agencies for the amount of rides that we provide, we'd be down, somewhere around 60, 70 when it comes to local bus. We're the 12th largest rideshare program. So currently we have about 230 vans on the road. And that is, I should note, the one service that is eligible for the city of Sumner. So anybody in Pierce County, either working in Pierce County or residing in Pierce County, as long as one of the ends of your trip starts in Pierce County, in or out of our service area, you can apply for a van pool and utilize that service. We also launched a micro transit service called Runner a couple of years ago. This is something that's new to us, new to the industry, and something we're working out some kinks. This is an on-demand service that is limited to some areas where we don't typically have bus service. We do some overlap and try to bring people into our typical service. As I mentioned, 6.5 million trips last year. The vast majority of them, over 6 million, were on fixed route. You see maybe 500,000 or so on paratransit. Rideshare can be up around 300,000 or 400,000, and then microtransit about 0.5% of all of our trips. So smaller percentage there, but obviously it's new and it's a thing we talk about quite a bit. That is a basic for who Pierce Transit is. And next we'll have Anna talk to you about the work we've been doing for the last year.
This is a little slow. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the long range plan. I'm not sure if any of you have had an opportunity to look at it online or if you've been to any events where we've talked about it, but the long range plan, much like your city's long range plan, is our look at what we are hoping for Pierce Transit 20 years out. So our long range plan looks at the horizon year of 2045. A couple things I need to make sure I make clear about our long range plan is our long range plan is predicated on us having additional funding. Currently, we are at a 0.6% sales tax. Our long range plan assumes that we will be at 0.9%. And as Ryan mentioned, our long range plan has some different scenarios. So our long range plan focuses on 4 different scenarios, and these are our fixed route scenarios. These are our buses, because our fixed route service, even though we offer 4 different types of service, is 90% of our service. So that's what we kind of focused on with our long range plan and predicting out. This slide just gives you some of the things that are in our long range plan. We talk about cost estimates and things like that. And then we'll go on to the next slide here. This slide is what I remember to talk to you about outreach. So in the process of creating our long range plan, one of the things we did a lot of community outreach. We went around to community events and we talked to people. We met with planners for the cities that are within our PTBA. And we also did some online outreach. And what you're seeing here is a map that shows some of the online comments we received. And 19 of those comments did come from Sumner. So we didn't tell people they couldn't comment just because they weren't in our service area. We actually wanted to hear from people who are outside of our service area. And Sumner residents overall expressed interest in having connecting service for commuters, connecting services to get to the Sounder. Those were the main comments from Sumner. All right, so growth scenarios. As I mentioned before, our long range plan focuses on growth scenarios, and Ryan mentioned scenario D. So we have scenario D up here on the map because that's going to be, I'm assuming, of most interest to you. This scenario not only does it assume a higher tax rate, so more funding, we are considering that there's a possibility communities like Sumner and other communities that left our service area in 2012 will want to come back. So we didn't ignore that. We planned out some illustrative routes, and we're showing those here. And this scenario shows us at 900,000 service hours, which doesn't mean as much to you as it does that it shows us reaching Sumner. But we can't serve Sumner unless you decide you want to come back into our service. And so, okay, I've learned. Okay, maybe I can't do that. All right. So we looked at a lot of things when we created this plan. We looked at population forecasts, where everybody's going to be. We used Puget Sound Regional Council population forecast information. We also, for the communities that are within our service area, we actually sat down with like I mentioned before, sat down with those planners and said, hey, this is what we're thinking. Can you let us know if we're on the right track? And so they sat down with us and said, you know, sometimes they redirected us and said, we know that there is a big development coming in this area. Things. What you're seeing here in this picture is the transit propensity index, which is a metric that combines factors such as population density and socioeconomic characteristics to predict the propensity or how likely somebody is to use transit. And as you can see, Sumner, there's one section of Sumner that gets pretty, that has a pretty high propensity to use transit predicted. And that's as from my understanding, a pretty densely populated area of Sumner. And we show routes going there, and that's one of the reasons we have routes going there. So like I said before, the draft long-range plan is online and it's open for comment through February 3rd. This is one of 2 public comment periods we're doing for this plan. So it's open now. It'll close February 3rd. We will make some revisions and we'll have it out again for public comment. And Ryan looks like he wants to add something, so I'm going to pass it to
We should
him.
talk a little bit more about this. So a couple of things that are assumed. Anna mentioned that the funding is assumed for all 4 scenarios. We're trying to meet the growth that's predicted by cities and growth that's predicted by the county and PSRC as was laid out in comprehensive plans that we've been coordinating with. We do not have the ability to meet the needs for the growth that's expected over the next 20 years. So that's something we're trying to explain to folks. In order to meet that need, we're going to have to find a way to get revenue that will be commensurate with that type of transit. We admittedly don't know as much about Sumner as we do about the 13 cities that are in our service area because we haven't been out here working. So Ryan Windish has been a great partner, not just for us, but for thoughtful transit leaders in this region for the last 7 years that I've worked with them. So we rely on your staff and the work that you're doing through comprehensive plan updates and different planning documents. This is something that we're experiencing in all the communities that we went out to because as you can see on that map, we're going in scenario D, we're going to other cities outside of Sumner that are currently outside of the service area. So we're relying on cities to tell us what you're going to potentially need over the next 20 years. We don't have a plan at this point. We haven't heard rumblings of any city pushing to come back in, but we do want to be prepared so that if that does happen, we can at least have a head start on helping folks understand what transit would look like. That is the end of what we have. There is much more information that can be commented on, not just by you and staff, but also by the community here in Sumner. I'm assuming you might want to talk about leaving and entering the service area. So if there are specific questions about that, we can answer everything we can do right now. And then we can obviously follow up later if there are any unanswered questions that we can't get to.
Do we have any questions? Ms. Councilmember? Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, thank you. Good to hear this presentation. I was just curious, can you explain? I think my understanding is when we left the PTBA, it was because we weren't going to get any more service because there wasn't enough ridership. And so we left because we weren't getting any service. So why would we want to join this? I mean, so what I'm hearing from you, maybe you can correct me, is that if we pay a certain amount of sales tax would go up with not a guaranteed service, but hopefully a service coming up eventually.
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer this, we're gonna answer this as two people who were not here during that period, so forgive me if I missed some of the historical information. My understanding from the conversations we've had over the years is that during the recession, service did shrink, and areas like Sumner and DuPont and Bonnie Lake, the service did get down to a level that folks were unhappy with. So I cannot promise that if Sumner or anybody else came back, that it wouldn't get like that again. Obviously, that's not the aim. Times are a lot different than they were back then. But there's no guarantee for any area that we have. I will say, we just had a meeting with our board and our community group on Friday, and we go through this question every year. How much emphasis should we put on frequency in the urban areas? How much emphasis should we put on coverage to areas that are more rural and don't have as much density as Lakewood or Tacoma have? And what we usually end up with is, yeah, both. So that's something that we deal with, and we understand the political ramifications of an area not getting that much service. We saw it before because we lost a significant amount of our service area. Anna mentioned that these are all looking at about 900,000 service hours. To put that in perspective, pre-pandemic, we were at about 500,000. And if you go back years ago to the time when Sumner was in our service area, we were well above the 500,000 service hour mark. So when we look at coming back to an area, it's not something that we push, and it's not something that Pierce Transit can push a button and have you back in. So we don't go out and sell coming back in. We go out and answer questions because we understand that the question of whether or not somebody should come back in is much more than would you like a bus? It is, do you want to pay the tax? Do you want to wait the likely year that it would take for an agency like ours to staff up, get trained, and add vehicles and add maintenance facilities? So there's a lot that goes into that, but we're obviously happy to share this document, which is a very wide and a high level overview, but then also come out and talk to community members and talk to people.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple more questions. So you mentioned the ride share was really popular, and I think you covered it a little bit, but so you're saying that if somebody was in Sumner currently doing ride share, what were the requirements for them to be a part of that?
This is the moment that I wish I would have pulled the Sumner information and found out how many rideshare vans there are in the city of Sumner tonight. So I know there are some. So if you're an employee or you're taking a van pool to work, your rideshare trip has to either start or end in Pierce County. So as long as we have people that drive to Kitsap County, Thurston County, King County, Snohomish County every day, as long as they start here, or the opposite's true. You can live in Seattle and drive to Sumner if you wanted to. As long as one of those two ends starts in our county, you're eligible for AMPL, and it doesn't matter if you're inside the service area or not.
Okay, thank you. And then one more question. I think I was just curious. So cities that are more rural, who maybe don't have as much need of transit as other areas, is there any consideration in the way the fees are charged or how the funds are raised that we would pay a similar amount compared to how much service? So say Sumner only gets 2 bus routes, and would we pay less, and we could raise our sales tax less? Is there any kind of like partnership agreements where you guys support but don't expect somebody who's getting very little service to provide the full amount of taxes?
Unfortunately, we can't. So we're unlike region. So there are public transit agencies like ours, so PTBAs. There are county-led transit agencies like King County Metro, which they're just a department of the county. And there's a regional transit agency like Sound Transit. Our version, PTBA, is what you typically see throughout the state. And we were allowed to go for one thing, and that's a flat sales tax that's applied everywhere within our boundary. So there's no wiggle room for us. The only thing we could do is an area could decide to tax themselves more. So let's say that City of Lakewood decided to run a ballot measure, and just in their city, they wanted to collect an extra 0.3% for transit. They could do that, but we can't. There's no mechanism for us to charge anybody less. Thanks for asking that. That's a good question.
Anybody else, Pat? Councilmember Kenna.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. I'm one of those transit nerds, really interested in this stuff and would love to see service back. The service that we do have, like with the Sounder train, and the Sounder Express buses and things like that, I think is, provides our residents something, mostly for commuters, and I'm excited about Sound Transit exploring maybe some all-day service, maybe some weekend service down the road. I know I hear from folks in Sumner when they open up the train for Seahawks games, Mariners games, which are on, Sunday afternoons, they're all about that. And so I would love to see more service and how that could connect to Pierce Transit. Eventually, when I was looking through the agenda packet and you had you didn't share it tonight, but in the packet, there was the historical routes from the 2010. It didn't have the stops on there. Were those kind of like just like a one-stop type of thing in Sumner, or there are multiple stops?
We'll
within?
send you the routes. We have the route with the
Okay.
stops. This was a very rudimentary historical drawing.
Yeah,
we had, but we can send the old routes just for you to take a look at.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to see that just for context. And you don't happen to know the frequency of those at the time either.
If I told you right now, I'd have to correct
It's
it
a-
later,
it's a-
but we'll
yeah.
get the frequency info.
Yeah,
Fan.
no, I'll wait for that. Did you also say that there was 6.5 million trips last year?
Roughly, if you look at all of the all four modes, yeah.
Okay, because I know the packet didn't have 2024's numbers in it, but here in 6.5, looks like that was up by about 500,000 or so
Yeah,
from the
it was.
previous years, so. Okay, I think that might be all that I have, Mayor Hayden.
Councilmember Ranky, did you have any?
No, I did not.
Councilmember Potato.
So for many years, the, Sumner Bonnie Lake School District encompasses both the Sumner and Bonnie Lake. And there's always been conversation, how do you get people from the hill down or, up? And, we appreciate having the parking lot up at Bonnie Lake, for people to get to the train station. But for regular citizens, there's been that frustration and, years and years of conversation that Ryan's been part of, I know. And so are you talking with Bonnie Lake at all? Are they interested?
I don't know who's interested and who's not. I can tell you that every city, there are about half dozen that left our service area 12 years ago. We talk to them every year. At some point during the year, some of them call 4 or 5 times. But at every point in the year,
Yeah.
one of them calls and we go out and do these presentations whenever somebody asks. From time to time, a city will call with a project that they want to do outside of Pierce Transit, and we're happy to help give our planning know-how and provide route information, what people might need for buses and maintenance facilities. So yes, we talked to Bonnie Lake. I can't tell you if they're interested or not because I don't want to. We never know. We come and present and then we let folks know what we can do. And I can say, in short, to come back in, I mentioned we don't press a button to make that happen. There are 2 ways to come back in, and
Right.
this is something we talk about all the time. Even people at Pierce Transit have a hard time with this. So I will send some information so that it can be touched on. Our board can determine to annex somebody back in, but we can't deliver service until they decide to tax themselves.
Right.
Or we can put the question out to voters and they can vote themselves back in and tax themselves. But either way, it has to go to voters to approve that tax. So we're fairly hands off when it comes to pushing that because it's a campaign that had to be done in those localities.
Yeah, the video you had in the packet was very helpful.
We appreciate hearing that.
And who's on the board? Are they only people that are getting service?
Yeah, in our service area, we have
representatives?
by law, it's done by population, and we just had a board composition meeting about 3 months ago. 3 from the city of Tacoma,
Mhm.
2 from the county council, and then we have 1 from Lakewood and 1 from Puyallup. And the other 2 are groups, so our smaller cities are grouped together.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you.
The only thing I'll share is, Councilmember Potato, you mentioned the video that is in the packet. If you have not watched that, I encourage you to do so.
Mhm.
Answer a lot of questions even for me about how to
Yeah.
get back in the district, because there's not one way, there's a couple ways. So it's
Yeah.
very informative. So I encourage you all to take a moment, find that link, click on it, and see what the public thinks.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. So, thank you. Okay, so now we move on to resolution number 1713, 2026 to 2031, 6-year transportation improvement program annual update. I call on Courtney Littrell, Assistant Engineering Manager, and Andrew Leach and Ryan Winger. Got them all tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Courtney Littrell, Assistant Engineering Manager. I'm joined by Senior Associate City Engineer Andrew Leach. Tonight we'll be talking about resolution number 1713, which is the 6-year transportation improvement plan update for 2026 to 2031. This plan is required to be updated once a year per state law and is to be filed with the Washington State Department of Transportation. And additionally, projects are required to be on the city's 6-year tip for grant funding. As part of the state requirement of this plan update, the city will hold a public hearing next Monday, February 3rd, to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the plan. And I'm just going to go item by item down the list that is in the packet. And if at any time there's any questions, feel free to stop me. Okay, you ready? All right. So I'll start with the arterial street program. Project A1 is Stewart Road Bridge replacement. Construction on this project is beginning in March of this year and is expected to wrap up in 2028. Project A2 is the 166th Avenue East widening. This is the double roundabout, and currently we're working through environmental permitting, which started in 2022. This is expected to last through the end of this year. This project also includes the replacement of a fish passage culvert for Salmon Creek, which runs under the intersection of 166th and 64th. We were recently awarded $2,249,000 from PSRC and STGB money for our right-of-way phase, but the construction phase is currently unfunded. Project A3 is the Maple Street pedestrian signal and citywide backplates. This project was just bid last week, and I'll be working with the contractor in the coming days to get the contract documents in order and have a project schedule. So this will be going to Public Works Committee next week. Project A4 is Valley Avenue overlay. This project is currently in design. Project A5 is Stewart Road Corridor ITS improvements. This project is beginning design this year with construction currently unfunded. Project A6 is the systemic horizontal curve and roadway departure safety improvements. This project is currently in design and expected to be constructed in 2026. Project A7 is the Puyallup Street and Tacoma Avenue intersection improvements, with the design beginning in 2026. Project A8 is Main Street Crossings. This is a new project on the list, which we recently were awarded a TIB grant funding for the design and construction phases of this project, which will cover 76% of the project costs. Project A9 is the roadway curve warning and delineation. This project will start designing in 2026. Project A10 is the East Valley Highway and Forest Canyon Road East intersection improvements. This is a newer project on the list. The intersection was identified in the transportation plan and is currently functioning at a level of service F, which is as bad as it gets. So we need to work towards identifying a project and solution for this intersection. The current delay is over 180 seconds on the Minor Lake. Project A11 is Traffic Avenue and Main Street intersection improvements. This was also identified in the updated transportation plan. This intersection is currently at a level D and is expected to be a level of service E in 2044. Project A12 is the East Valley Highway, Elm Street, Valley Avenue intersection improvements. This was also identified in the updated transportation improvement plan. And this is to make improvements to these intersections in the future where there's currently a level of service D and E at Valley and Elm. and is expected to be a level service F in 2024, with Valley and Elm being a level service of E. Project A13 is WashDOT's State Route 167 and I-5 connection project. This project's currently underway with stage 2A beginning this year, with the entire project expecting to be completed in 2030. Project A14 is another WashDOT project of the State Route 167 and 410 interchange. Oh, sorry, that's a later one. This is the adding a southbound HOV lane on 167 or on 167 to 410. Project A15 is Sumner Taps Highway and 60th Street East intersection improvements. This is an unfunded project that is to come in future years, with the possibility to fund this project through our TIF funding. Project A16 is the roundabouts at the State Route 410 and State Route 162 intersections. This is through WashDOT, and we're currently working with WashDOT on utility coordination and relocation with them currently. With our last meeting we had with WashDOT, they're expecting to begin construction of this in February of 2026.
Courtney, can we pause
Yes.
just since we just finished our, oh, no, I'm sorry, yeah, one more, arterial.
Two more terms,
more.
yes. Project A17 is the 160th Avenue East. This project is partially completed by developers. And then our last arterial project is A18, which is Main Street and the 160th intersection improvements. This was also identified in the transportation plan to either construct a signal or roundabout when the volumes warrant it.
Projects.
She just went through all of our arterial projects. I think it's a good time to pause and go over any questions you have about arterial projects.
Do we have any questions on arterial projects? Barbara does.
And there's a lot to take in. The one at A2. So what is the status? Is it in design?
Yeah, so we're currently in design. We have a 30% design right now. We're waiting on our biological assessment to be reviewed from the state. So before we can start moving forward with that, we have right-of-way funding once we get to that phase. So we're fully funded for design and right-of-way. So we're just kind of in a slow holding period for the time being until
So
we
what
get
is
that.
the path forward?
So we're expected to get the biological assessment approved this year, and hopefully be out to construction in 2028.
28.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
We have been lining up, as Courtney mentioned, we've gotten some federal dollars for right of way. We also have a state asking right now with the state legislature to help us pay for the culvert. We also have a federal ask through Representative Strickland's office to help us with construction. We actually asked for right of way. We're trying to move that to construction, so we're fortunate to get some other right of way dollars. So this is a good example too of this is a state interchange. Okay. This is something that is WashDOT's responsibility, but it affects our community. So we're helping by taking the lead. This is common for cities to do because WashDOT has limited ability and resources. So we're taking this on similar to what we did with Traffic Avenue and 410. And that was Mr. Leach's project. Did a great job managing that, raised a lot of money, outside money to get that interchange built. We're hoping to do the exact same thing with 166 and 410.
Yeah, I really appreciate the 410 interchange because it's just made such a big difference on the traffic flow.
And just so we didn't forget about Valley Avenue, as Courtney pointed that out, that is a WashDOT project, and they are working on that one and going out to construction this year. So.
Andy, go ahead.
I was just curious on A10. So A10 you brought up, that's the Forest Canyon and East Valley. So that was, I mean, to me at least, my perspective would be clearly that's caused by the additional like significant number of houses up on Forest Canyon. Is that, and it looks like, are those houses in Sumner city limits or outside?
They're in our UGA.
They're in our UGA, so they're in Pierce County. So there was no like any traffic impact fees from those new houses is not going to help us with this intersection. Is that what I'm trying to figure out?
I don't believe they paid any traffic impact fees since they're not in the city. They did pay some utility fees when they're connected to our sewer system.
Okay, so there's no, okay, I was just curious. It seemed to me that the new development, we had that figured out, but that's just because it's not in our, okay. Is Pierce County, do they help out with things like that when they create traffic problems, or do they just kind of say the city's gotta deal with it?
They do not put local projects on their tip. The one time they've ever done that in recent memory was Stewart Road Bridge, and they only did that because we had a free annexation fee. So no, they do not help with local streets. It's very abnormal for them to do that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Pat? No? Anybody down here? All right.
I'll move on to our Collector Street
There we go.
projects. So project C1 is Elm Street and Wood Avenue sidewalks. So this will extend the recently completed sidewalk project that was completed on Elm Street near Stephen Fuller Park. Project C2 is the Town Center Cherry and Maple Utilities. This is the phase 2 of the Town Center Utility and Moon Earth project that is only on Cherry and Maple Street. C3 is Hunt Avenue. Based on our pavement assessment, this is one of the worst rated roads and is far too gone to overlay, and so this road needs a full rebuild. Project C4 is the neighborhood traffic calming and intersection data collection. We recently received HSIP funding, which is federal funds for this project, with design beginning in 2026. Project C5 is 160th Avenue East. This is currently unfunded. Completing design would assist developers of properties to provide required design information. Project C6 is Elm Street East. This completion of this work is unfunded, but is ready for developers who need the public design information. Project C7 is Parker Road East. There's missing sidewalk on Parker. This project's currently unfunded. And again, design completion would assist developers of properties to provide required design information. C8 is another Parker Road East project. This project is also currently unfunded. And again, design completion would assist developers of properties to provide required design information. C9 is Zender Street. This, we are continuing to look for grant funding to improve this railroad crossing. C10 is the 162nd Avenue East segment extension. Planning's been completed, but there has been no funding for design or construction. And C11 is the 164th Avenue Port East segment extension. And same for that one. Planning's been completed, but there's been no funding identified yet. C12 is Meebacumber and Gary Street sidewalk improvements. This is an unfunded project that we're continuing to looking for grant funding. And the last collector arterial project is C13, which is Elizabeth Street. And again, based on our pavement analysis, this is also one of our worst rated roads and cannot be overlaid and needs a new full rebuild. This street, however, was chip sealed in 2023 to try to gain a few more years of that pavement life. Any questions?
Any questions on those? Councilmember Kenna.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney and Andrew. With like C3 was an example as you were kind of walking through those on Hunt Avenue, which I know doesn't have sidewalks. Just as using that as an example, is it a case that when we identify a project, whether it's a paver or anything else, other improvements that need to be made on a street, but it doesn't have sidewalks, is that something we are required to add, or we just, it's best practice, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so with this project, it'd be a full rebuild. We'd do sidewalk, gutter, storm, everything. So it'd be to our collector standards.
But is that like a requirement or a practice that if we touch the pavement essentially to make some sort of improvement and there's no sidewalks, we have to add those in?
Technically, at the corners, ADA ramps would be a requirement as a minimum, and then best practices to fill those sidewalk gaps in as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Botetto.
So Is it on Washington Street where you have to completely redo that one section? So is that not on here or is it?
So that's moved to the completing list since that's gonna be done this year.
Oh, so this is too far out to, okay, well, that's good that it's not on. Good.
Anybody else? Councilmember L first.
Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned C3, which was Hunt Avenue, and if I remember right, I thought, was that different than the one we talked about funding this year to do design, or is that the same?
I'd have to go back and look to see if you funded design. I don't think you did fund design for it.
Is that we talked a lot about that one?
Talked a lot about it.
She said we did.
Yes.
Design is funded, construction is not.
Design is funded. Okay, that one. I just remember I wasn't sure you commented on that. So I think design is funded on the C3. Okay,
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody down here? All right, carry on.
Okay. On to our trail program.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, one thing I just want to remind council and for our listening audience, collectors are much more difficult to get grant funds for. So this is when we talk about roadway conditions like on Hunt or Washington or Elizabeth, just to remind everybody, a lot of these are roads that we have to pay for using our general fund dollars or limited resources. So I know during the budget process, council wanted us to come back with some funding options for the Transportation Benefit District that is on the agenda for the end of February. So we didn't forget, it is forthcoming because as you can see, we have a lot of streets that are nearing the end of their life and are going to need some attention to get more life out of them.
Thank you, Jason. All right, so our trail program, project T1 is the Friar Avenue Trail. The right-of-way and design phases are expected to be completed by the end of this year with construction beginning next year. Project T2 is the White River Restoration Trail. This project is currently in redesign with an estimation of construction of the trail in 2027. Project T3 is the River Grove Pedestrian Bridge. That project has a 30% design completion, and we recently received $5 million in construction funding, but the remaining portion of that construction is still unfunded. Project T4 is the Puyallup River Trail Bridge. This was a project identified in the Parks and Trails Plan, which would provide an important trail connection. And this is also eligible for possible grant funding. And Project T5 is the Puyallup River Crossing. And again, this one was also identified in the Parks and Trails Plan and is eligible for possible grant funding.
Anybody have any questions or comments? No?
Thank you.
Okay.
Onto our annual street maintenance program. So project R1 is our street overlay program. R2 is the roadway paint line application. R3 is the pavement repairs. R4 is our roadway plastic marking application. R6 is the chip seal, and R5 is chip seal, sorry. And R6 is crack seal. All of these are annual programs that are completed based on an analysis that is completed every year based off of the roadway conditions and where efforts have not been previously focused. R7 is our neighborhood traffic control program. And this is evaluated on an as-needed basis, and there are currently no projects identified for this one. R8 is our ADA transition plan. This is also evaluated on an as-requested basis with no current projects identified. And then R9 and R10 are our sidewalk maintenance program and helping homeowner sidewalk program. Work from the 2023 and 2024 bienniums will be completed this Friday. And we're currently scheduled for design this year with construction in 2026 to continue that program.
All right. Any comments? Councilmember Kenna.
On the ADA transition plan, when was that last updated?
2017, maybe before that.
Is there a standard time frame that cities usually revisit that and look at updating it?
I know we're gonna be looking at updating it this coming year. At least planning for that. I'm not sure if it's gonna be fully updated this year. Lisa?
Part of the climate commitment.
Mhm. Ryan?
No, I can answer it. So you might recall, we got some funding from the state regarding to climate planning. So there's 5 different kind of sub-grants to that. The ADA transition plan is one of those.
Okay,
So yes, we will be working.
okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Nice work, Jason.
And once she said it,
All right.
And then, so our projects that are completing in 2025, we have our Main Street and Wood Avenue intersection improvements. That project, the remaining work consists of the utility box wraps next to the day-night grocery. We received the design proofs from our supplier last week, and so those will be installed in the coming weeks. Our Washington Street preservation project, that project's currently in design with construction taking place this summer. And then Hops Alley, design on that project is wrapping up and is construction is anticipated to begin in late March or early April of this year.
I'll just add one thing on the completed projects. This is a decision that was made this morning, so I don't know if Courtney's been told yet. But Washington Street, where it's likely gonna have to be pushed till early 26. Just it's taking a little bit longer to get all of our utilities coordinated, and we want to make sure we have it right rather than rushed. Right is more important, so we get good accurate bids. So it might start late this year, but it'll probably be early 26.
Any questions? Oh, all right.
Thank you.
That's all you have?
Yeah, and we'll be back next week for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you guys. We move on to city administrator report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing to report on tonight. I just want to let council know that your staff and the mayor, we've been very busy monitoring the legislative activity in Olympia. There's a lot of bills that have been dropped. There's a lot of bills that could directly impact local control and when it comes to zoning and parking regulations, fees, a whole bunch of things that the state is proposing to change. We're still very early in the legislative process. You know, a lot of bills are getting hearings, has to pass out of the Chamber of Origin before it goes to the other chamber for another hearing and final consideration. So just want to assure you that we are providing a lot of feedback through our lobbyists, as well as signing in either pro or con, match your legislative agenda that you passed. We will start providing you some specific bill updates during the regular council meeting, city administrator report, just so you can kind of see what Olympia's been working on.
Any questions for Jason? Councilmember Potato.
So in light of the recent transition in the federal level, how is that affecting the city?
There's been no direct effects yet, but it's definitely something we're monitoring because as the federal government makes changes, especially when it comes to funding, it'll be interesting to see how those trickle down and if it's impacting state and local funds or if it'll just be at the federal level.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell quite yet.
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember
Every day is a
Kenneth.
surprise.
Yeah, and on a similar note, I know new Governor Ferguson is making a lot of statements about budget cuts for all the different state agencies, and so I think that'll be interesting to see how the legislature wrestles with that on their end of the equation. Do you have any sense from our folks that are in the know on that stuff as to where that might head? Is it too early to tell?
You know, it's definitely too early to tell because if you look at the governor's proposed cuts, I believe it was 6% across the board. Depending on what number you hear from the legislature, 6% isn't enough to meet the entire deficit that they're anticipating. So it's probably going to be a combination of things. Ultimately, it's up to the legislature to pass a balanced budget. So we'll see where it comes.
It's gonna get very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any questions down here? Any questions down there? All right. Any council meeting issues, any agenda issues on that? No, seeing none. No committee issues, guys? Are you good with that? All right. And we have no executive session tonight, so I will adjourn this meeting at 7 o'clock on the nose.